Welcome back. Today we are talking about the career of Alexandre Daigle, the HRHSL career of Alexandre Daigle. If I tried to fit his whole career up here, it would probably take at least two boards or one board of NHL stats, talk, white, HRHSL, talk about it. So we're going to give some mentions to his pre-HRHSL NHL career. Of course, he's drafted first overall in 1993 by the Ottawa Senators. Yeah, real quick, by the way, Chicago hat. Of course, he played a while in Chicago. I'm wearing a Montreal jersey just because within the span of the HRHSL, just like the Montreal Canadiens, Alexandre Daigle does get 3 Stanley Cups. Spoiler alert. And yeah, plus he's from the province of Quebec, so I figured why not? It makes sense. I'll wear it like this. So, yeah, he's drafted first overall in 1993. He famously has the quote, "I'm glad I was picked number 1 because nobody remembers number 2. Number 2 was Chris Pronger. We know he was a very solid defenseman for a long time. I believe retired around 2010, 2012-ish, around there, I believe, in the HRHSL. But, so he's drafted first overall in 93. There's big expectations on him. There is superstar in the making opportunities with Alexandre Daigle. He's offered Ottawa has offered superstars Nolan Nolan, Peter Forsberg. He's offered big guys like that in exchange for either the pick or straight up Alexandre Daigle. Ottawa turns them all down. At the time, especially with what Owen Nolan and Peter Forsberg would become and continue to be, yeah, probably not the smartest choice by the Ottawa Senators, but then again, they're not an organization that makes good choices often. So, from 1993 to 2006, not just with the Ottawa Senators, he bounced around a lot. He went from the Senators, I believe, to Philadelphia, played a couple games in Tampa. He was at the Rangers for a cup of coffee. He's out of the league by 2000, comes back in 2002, plays for Pittsburgh, and has a couple good seasons with Minnesota. Overall, at the end of his NHL career, he plays 616 games, 129 goals, 198 goals, 327 points. He has 12 career playoff games with 2 assists. He was on some very, very poor teams. He was on the first incarnation of the Senators, the first 7 years of their lifespan, so what were playoffs. He goes to Tampa Bay, who's not in a good position either at that point. He goes to the Rangers. They're kind of in a rebuild. He goes to Pittsburgh. They're not good. He goes to Minnesota. Of course, 2003, actually, when he would be with, I believe, the Minnesota Wild. They went on that big run to the conference finals. However, just Daigle didn't play in that conference finals series. He didn't play at all during that playoff run. So the 2 assists in 12 playoff games. He is half a point per game, about 327 points, 616 games. It's not bad, but he finds himself out of the league again in 06-07. He signs with, I believe, Davos in Europe, HC Davos. Ignore the stats on here, by the way. Don't look at those. Don't cheat. Don't cheat. That's not nice to do. Don't cheat. But he spends a year in Davos. He actually signed a 5-year contract deal there. However, after just 1 season, he is given an offer that he can't refuse in the best way possible. The Chicago Blackhawks, looking to make a stake for the Stanley Cup. They just drafted Patrick Kane in 2007. They have Jonathan Toews, of course. They have a lot of really good young prospects. Dustin Byfuglien, I believe, is also there. They had just traded a young John Scott, I believe, as well. I've done a career video on him before as well. Dustin Byfuglien, when he retires, would be an interesting guy to look at as well, because he would be interesting to look at. But the Blackhawks signed Alexandre Daigle on a 1-year deal worth $6.2 million for a salary cap era where the cap is about $50 million. It was seen as a very risky contract. Even though it is only a 1-year deal, it was seen as the Blackhawks trying to rush through their rebuild. But it works. It ends up working, surprisingly. He plays all 82 games, 35 goals, 34 assists, 69 points. Stop chuckling. He plays 7 playoff games, 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points. So in one playoff run, he more than doubles his career playoff points in roughly half the games, slightly over half the games. He makes the All-Star game for the Chicago Blackhawks, so it's his, I believe, third All-Star game, sorry. I believe he made one in either his rookie year or in 95, I believe. He made an All-Star game for the Ottawa Senators. But 69 points, He also sets a career high, I believe, in goals, assists, and points that season. And of course, a career high in playoff goals, ties his career high in assists, and sets a new high in playoff points. So Alexandre Daigle has a very solid season, and the Blackhawks reward him with an extension. It's a 2-year deal this time, worth $6 million per year. Of course, also, I should note, Alexandre Daigle signed the highest ever contract for a rookie. I believe it was $12.5 million over 5 years for Alexandre Daigle when he first signed. That was what eventually would lead to what is now the entry-level contract, the ELC, for those in the know. But Alexandre Daigle, at this point, he's about 33 years old. Signs a 2-year deal, like I said, $6 million with the Hawks. It was seen as that was a bit of a risk. That was more of a risk, even though the $6.2 million, Daigle has done nothing in the last handful of years in the NHL. Again, the 69 points. And 08-09, he somehow gets better. 82 games, 35 goals, 36 assists, 71 points. So he sets a new career high in points and assists, ties his career high in goals. And in 26 playoff games, Alexandre Daigle has 10 goals, 16 assists, 26 points. The Chicago Blackhawks win the Stanley Cup. So 2 years after drafting Patrick Kane first overall in 2007, 2 seasons later, they're Stanley Cup champions. So Alexandre Daigle playing a massive, massive part in that Stanley Cup. Daigle, who came into the league without a lot of passion for the game. He came to the NHL. He only kept playing, he's mentioned, because he knew he had the talent and he wanted to be a celebrity. At this point, he is a pure mentor. His love has been rejuvenated for the game, and he's rewarded with his first Stanley Cup, an incredible playoff performance. Gets close to the Conn Smythe, but I believe that went, I forget who that went to at the top of my head, but you could have made a legitimate case for Alexandre Daigle to be your Conn Smythe winner. He makes the All-Star game again. One of, I believe, 2 players to make the All-Star game 2 years in a row for the Hawks. I believe it was him, and Gilbert Brulé, I believe, was the other guy that made it in both years. If not for sure, 08-09, he made it. And yeah, so the Hawks coming off a Stanley Cup win. How does Daigle perform? Well, the next year his numbers just do drop. In 09-10, he plays all 82 games, 24 goals, 31 assists, 55 points. Still a performing top 6 forward. Still a very solid performer. It should be noted that for 09-10, the numbers of everybody in the league did drop. The league was still coming off of the lockout by 07 and 08, 09. They were still coming off of the 2-line pass being abolished, so numbers were up because people could pass 2 lines now. They could get on more breakaways. The game was opening up to more offense. So 09-10 and 10-11, the years that Daigle's numbers did kind of dip, the league was finally really starting to fully adapt to the 2-line pass being abolished. And yeah, so 09-10, 82 games, 24 goals, 31 assists, 55 points. So Daigle's numbers, like I said, do drop. Still a 20-goal scorer, good performing top 6 talent. He plays 7 playoff games, just the 2 goals, but 6 assists for 8 points. Daigle plays very well in that first round series. They do lose it, though. So the Stanley Cup hangover is a bit real for the Blackhawks. And Daigle is rewarded still for his 55 points. He's rewarded with a 1-year contract extension worth $3 million. Get used to hearing that contract. Ladies and gentlemen, again, don't look down the board. That's cheating. Don't do that. That's rude. He's re-signed for the 2010-2011 season with the Hawks. He plays all 82 games again. 15 goals, 30 assists, 45 points. So again, his points do dip. He is still performing well. At this point, I believe 35 years old, 34, 35 years old. He is performing, though, with the 45 points. Good middle 6 performer. He plays 11 playoff games, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points. Still a good playoff performer as the Hawks make the second round. And it is around here that the tide does shift, especially after that Stanley Cup win and what could have, arguably should have been a Conn Smythe for Alexandre Daigle, who, by the way, goes his entire career without winning an award. He doesn't win a Marc Messier award at any point in his career. He doesn't win scoring titles, which, first overall pick, that's what you'd want. But at this point, you're getting a veteran who knows what he's doing. It is still surprising that Daigle never wins an award throughout his NHL career, aside from the Stanley Cup. But the 45 points, like I said, it's around here that the tide does shift from, Daigle 2 assists in 12 playoff games, to he's a legitimate playoff performer. When you give him a team around him, he can play well in the playoffs, and he does. And he's awarded again. He takes a bit of a cut compared to what he could have gotten on the market. He signs another 1-year deal with the Hawks worth $2 million. So the Hawks in a little bit of a cap strap situation. Daigle takes less to remain with the team for the 11-12 season, what would prove to be his first time around last season with the Chicago Blackhawks. He plays all 82 games, 22 goals, 12 assists, 34 points. So the goals come back up, but the points do drop off. The assists just aren't there that season for Daigle. He plays all 18 playoff games as well, for just the 3 goals, as the Hawks are out in the, I believe, 2012. I believe that is the Western Conference Finals to the San Jose Sharks. So Daigle, unfortunately, not a good playoff performance. A 20-goal season though, good third line forward, and the Hawks let him go. Surprisingly, he spends 5 years with the Blackhawks, and they let him go. They see him as on the decline, even though he is having the 20-goal season. Those 3 goals in the playoffs, not a good look for them, unfortunately. And he signs on day 1 of free agency. He signs a 1-year, $4 million contract with the Detroit Red Wings for the 12-13 season, in which he plays all 82 games. Again, that even though everybody is playing every game that they usually can for a season, Alexandre Daigle made the most of those games. And a lot of the time when he was not putting up points, he still was playing well. He was getting chances, he was getting opportunities. And it's especially around here that you start to notice a little bit of defense creeping into his game. Well, a little bit more than he would usually play. He would, stick check a little bit, but he was starting to get the back checking side of the game a little bit at this stage. Again, he's 35-36. He's starting to be a little bit more of a two-way forward at this point in his career. Not just looking to put up points, but in all 82 games, his first season with the Red Wings, he placed 82 games, 10 goals, 31 assists, 41 points. So the goal scoring drops, but the playmaking returns. He has a better year than the year before. And in 5 playoff games, he has shut down 0 points. Yeah, so the Red Wings just dominated in that first round series. Daigle has no points. He did not play well during that playoff series. However, the Wings liked what they see in the regular season. They re-signed him 1 year, $3 million, remember, for the 13-14 season. He plays all 82 games, 18 goals, and it's a little bit hard to see, 38 assists, 56 points. So Alexandre Daigle, his best season since 08-09. His playmaking's returned. His goal scoring's gone up a little bit, almost a 20-goal scorer. But it's the playoffs where he really clicks. He plays 21 games, 3 goals, just 3 goals like 2 years prior, 17 assists, 20 points. Alexandre Daigle is a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. The Detroit Red Wings, I believe that's the year they took out the Montreal Canadiens in the Stanley Cup final, I believe. So the Red Wings have won the Stanley Cup for the first time since 2002. And Alexandre Daigle is suddenly a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. He was a serious part of that playoff run. He looked like he had aged back 10 years in the best way possible. He looked like he was current Alexandre Daigle, just aged back to 26 years old. He was incredible during that playoff run. And he's rewarded, again, another 1 year, $3 million contract with the Detroit Red Wings. Daigle was a very easy man to please contract-wise. You give him more than $2 million usually, aside from that 1 year, you're going to probably get him to re-sign. Daigle was a very, very easy guy to re-sign. The Hawks rewarded him big time. The Red Wings gave him a little bit less. He was still happy. He was on a winning team. But 14-15 would actually prove to be his last season with the Detroit Red Wings. He plays just 61 games, 14 goals, 18 assists, 32 points. He's actually traded to the Vancouver Canucks. And actually, I should probably get that trade up now that I'm thinking about it. Alright, so I've got the trade back up on the board. My apologies. But it's March 1st. At the trade deadline, he is dealt to the Vancouver Canucks. The Red Wings were in a playoff spot. However, they wanted to add some pieces. Daigle ended up being the odd man out. He is traded for a 2016 third and a Columbus 2017 third. So he's traded for 2 third-round picks, which is surprisingly less than what a lot of people thought he could have gotten. A lot of people thought he could have gotten a second-round pick, a good prospect, a second or a good prospect, I should say. But it's 2 third-round picks is what the Red Wings take for him, and With the Canucks, he does play well. Not incredible, but he does play as advertised. 21 games, puts up 3 goals, 8 assists, 11 points. So about half a point per game with the Vancouver Canucks. A little over half a point per game. And in 12 playoff games, he has 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points as the Canucks are out in the second round. And he's a pure rental. He does not stay with the Vancouver Canucks. He is a rental. He signs a 1-year deal with the Ottawa Senators. July 1st of 2015. Yeah, it shocked everybody. Everybody was talking about Florida was apparently interested in offering him a contract extension. Montreal was interested a couple times when he went to free agency. There were teams in both conferences that really wanted Alexandre Daigle in 2015. Ottawa came out of nowhere. They gave him good money, though. They gave him a 1-year deal worth $2.25 million. And it makes sense. Alexandre Daigle said that he wanted to go back to Ottawa. They had booed him relentlessly the past roughly decade since he'd come back to the NHL and become partially a superstar, a very good top 6 forward and into a middle 6 role. So he comes back. He said he wanted to make amends with the Ottawa fans. He wanted to help them win a Stanley Cup. And would he? In 82 games, he plays 17 goals, 11 assists. He has 17 goals, 11 assists, 28 points. So the goal scoring matches the total from last year. That's what you expect. Just the 11 assists puts him at 28 total points. He plays 12 playoff games, 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points, as the Ottawa Senators are eliminated in the second round. Daigle did play well. Daigle played well. This is the season that he really, really mastered his defensive game. I believe he's playing under Guy Boucher at this point. I forget if he was the assistant or the head coach in Ottawa at this point, but Guy Boucher could do that. 2 young and old players. He could really help them out with their defensive game. And, of course, Ottawa fans, during a game against the Chicago Blackhawks at home, famously chanting, "We forgive you," to Alexandre Daigle, which you could see his reaction on the bench did make him tear up. That was a very, very fun moment, very nice moment for everyone involved. The Senators gave him a video package for the welcome back Daigle, showing some of his highlights in Ottawa, a lot of his career highlights, him lifting the cup. To which a lot of people, when it was announced on Twitter that day that we will be welcoming back Alexandre Daigle, a lot of people were expecting boos, and it was nothing but cheers. There was nothing but applause and the happiness really for Alexandre Daigle's return to Ottawa. Him coming back to Ottawa and them welcoming him back. A lot of people were not expecting that, but that's what you get out of Ottawa. They're an incredibly welcoming community, very welcoming team. They don't care what happened in the past. You want to help them in the current, they'll let you. They will absolutely be welcoming as long as you perform. And Daigle performed as advertised. 3rd, 4th line guy, $2.25 million. Ottawa welcomed him back, and they let him go. Daigle wanted to re-sign with the Ottawa Senators. The Ottawa Senators did not want to re-sign Alexandre Daigle. They expected him to retire, and he doesn't. He goes to free agency yet again at, I believe, now 41 years old. So he goes back to Ottawa at 40 years of age. This was a little bit reminiscent of Danny Alfredson. Daniel Alfredson. I believe he signs, I forget where. He's 40 around this point, and he signs with a European club, I believe. It reeked of desperation with Danny Alfredson because he'd been retired from the NHL for a couple of years and had no interest in playing hockey. He's given about $8 million by a European club, and yeah, Daigle is the opposite because he had performed. They didn't sign him to be a top-line player. He's a bottom sixer at this stage in his career. And it's on July 1st again, so a lot of July 1st signings for Alexandre Daigle with the Red Wings, the Senators, and now signs with San Jose. So he goes back out west after playing for the Blackhawks. The Red Wings, I believe, might have been out west and Vancouver. Goes to the Eastern Conference with the Ottawa Senators, and he heads right back to the West. So out of all these teams he's played for so far, ignore the bottom. Don't cheat. Stop reading. Plays one season in the East and goes right back to the West. So apparently he likes colder hemispheres. He signs a 1-year deal worth $1.35 million. Worth $3.5 million on a 1-year deal with the San Jose Sharks. And he plays well. He plays better than advertised. He plays all 82 games again. 21 goals, 14 assists, 35 points. He plays in 18 playoff games. The Sharks were eliminated in the conference finals that year by the Chicago Blackhawks, I believe. He plays all 82 games. In 18 playoff games, 3 goals, 8 assists, 11 points. Very solid performance by Alexandre Daigle on, I believe, the third line on that team. He played very, very well. The Sharks let him go. This is a weird thing here, that Daigle play well and then be let go. The Blackhawks let him go. The Red Wings traded him. The Canucks let him go. The Sens let him go. The Sharks let him go. Who comes calling back? It's the Chicago Blackhawks. They come calling back July 1st again. They sign him. It's a 1-year, $2 million deal. So a decade after he signed, he goes back. It would have been really funny if they signed him a $6.2 million deal, but you can't have everything being perfect in the world. But 17-18, a decade after he first signed, will he put up another 60-point season? No. He's like 42 at this point. What do you expect? He plays all 82 games. He does get somewhat close, though. 82 games, 19 goals, 21 assists, 40 points. So Alexandre Daigle, whose career had been, for the HRHSL, had been pretty good, a little worse, pretty good, getting to the bottom 6 role, and then slowly increasing from Ottawa to San Jose to Chicago. He plays very well. Like I said, the 40 points, about half a point per game, playing on, I believe, the third, fourth line. And in the playoffs, he plays 21 games, 5 goals, 6 assists, 11 points. His third Stanley Cup in a decade. So, Alexandre Daigle's third Stanley Cup in 9 years, actually, really, when you think about it. Alexandre Daigle has more Stanley Cups than a guy like Danny Heatley, which is incredibly surprising. Danny Heatley is a guy we're absolutely going to have to take a look at again in the future, because when we covered him, we were at 15, 16. A lot has happened in the last 4 seasons with Heatley, but this is about Alexandre Daigle. He wins the Stanley Cup, incredible leadership, mentorship at that point, and it's expected that he's going to remain with the Blackhawks or go to free agency. It was expected here that he might retire. It was expected here he might retire. Here he might retire. Here he might retire. Here he's expected to finally remain. Oh, he's 42. There's no way he retires after a career year. Danny Heatley announces his retirement 3 days after the Chicago Blackhawks win the Stanley Cup. He puts out a statement on Twitter. He has a little press conference with the Blackhawks. He announces that he's retiring from the NHL. His body can't hold up anymore. Even though he played well. He played well again that last season. It's just his body was breaking down on him. He wanted to be able to have a fairly pain-free life after hockey. He was blocking a lot of shots those last 2 seasons especially, and that really takes a toll on you. He said that he loved playing for the Blackhawks, the Red Wings, Canucks, the Senators, the Sharks, the Senators originally. You mentioned every team that he played for. He loved playing for them. He gave a couple stories from each of his experiences with the teams that he played for. That was really, really cool. I watched the full thing. It was about an hour long of him telling stories after his retirement. And yeah, he basically just said he loved playing for all these teams. He's very happy that I got to make amends with the Ottawa Senators. He apologized to Hawks fans for those 3 goals in 18 games that he couldn't put up more assists or even one. He joked about that. He joked about that a little bit. That was pretty fun. He said, I think I made up for it in Detroit, but Hawks fans aren't Detroit fans mostly, so that was really fun. And yeah, just he retires on a very good note for a career that up until 06 looked like it was a little bit of a bust of a career. He recovers in the HRHSL as a whole. He plays 902 games. So this is from the age of 30 onwards. 902 games, 233 goals, 284 assists, 517 points. This is where it gets good. He plays 158 career NHL HRHSL playoff games, 37 goals, 66 assists, 103 points. So Alexandre Daigle, a big playoff performer. If you take out these 2 runs, especially, you take out those 23 games, it gets even more impressive because, okay, he loses 3 goals, but his points per game goes way up if you take out the 3 goals in 18 games and the 5 playoff games with Detroit that first year. And in total, for his entire career, Alexandre Daigle, 1,518 NHL games, 362 goals, 482 assists, 844 points in 170 playoff games, 37 goals, 68 assists, 105 points. Of course, the 2-12 prior. Alexandre Daigle wraps up his career on a great, strong note. A pretty okay 20s. As soon as he turned 30, though, it got way better. His career got a lot better. And yeah, the Hawks, it all started with the Hawks taking a chance on him. They gave him more chances. The Red Wings gave some chances. The Canucks wanted him so much they traded for him. The Sens, he made amends with. Played well with the Sharks. Finishes out where he starts his HRHSL career with. Wins a cup in the end. Retires on a great note. Does Alexandre Daigle belong in the Hall of Fame, though? This is a question that I was going to start the video with, but I thought no, because it's going to put way too high expectations on him, like there were at the draft. Alexandre Daigle played incredibly well before his draft. He was in the QMJHL. There were there was too much hope put on him. Didn't live up to them. So I didn't want to put, is he a Hall of Famer? Until now, after his career's done. The 1,500 games, 844 points, 105 points in 170 playoff games, the 3 Stanley Cups, I believe 3 All-Star games as well. Is Alexandre Daigle worthy of a career spot in the Hall of Fame, the Hockey Hall of Fame? I don't know. I don't think I can conclusively answer yes or no, because the first half of his career might honestly hinder the second half, because he is half a point per game, but there's nothing there. There's the 12 playoff games and the All-Star game, and that's about it. He doesn't win 3 Stanley Cups, has 2 30-goal seasons, has several incredible playoff runs, at least 3 or 4 of them, you know? To me, Hockey Hall of Fame, I feel like the 1,500 games could maybe get him there. But the HRHSL Hall of Fame, because of the 3 Stanley Cups, he led the way for all 2 of the 3 Stanley Cups. He was a great supporting character, if you will, in the 3rd Cup. If there's ever an HRHSL Hall of Fame, you may want to argue that Alexandre Daigle is first ballot. I think there's a certain number of players that could be first ballot into the Hall of Fame. Of course, Jaromir Jagr, Danny Heatley has to be one of them, Mika Kiprusoff, Haley Wickenheiser. I think Alexandre Daigle is one of those players. To put up these amount of stats, 517 points in 902 games, playing all over the age of 30, I think Daigle's worthy of that HRHSL Hall of Fame spot. Again, if there ever is an HRHSL Hall of Fame, which could be an interesting video. Who could be inducted into the HRHSL Hall of Fame, you know? Because we're not just talking about players, we could be talking about coaches and GMs. And yeah, Alexandre Daigle, though. Really good career after it looked in 06 like wasted career, 12 whole playoff games, half a point per game, but you wanted more. From 07 onwards, they got more. Alexandre Daigle with an overall, you could argue, phenomenal career in the NHL, the HRHSL. Alexandre Daigle. So that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff if you're just passing your way through. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, especially ring the notification bell. That's going to do it, guys. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I'll be back some other time with another HRHSL career video. Who knows when, but yeah. Have a good day. Have a wonderful evening. And don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff, because I will find you if you do not. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.